Every time I start a company, I find people to put in place that have already done it multiple times before, because your risk of failure are lower and they already know everything to do. So I don't have to deal with client relationships. I don't have to deal with customer service or anything like that. I get to do what I enjoy doing.
Why did you do an agency? So me and Sam always talk about we have many mottos on this podcast. For example, we don't do public math. For example, you don't say you're rich, you say you're post-economic. These are things we've picked up from guests along the way. And one of the mottos that we say is agencies suck. And it's like and the reason we say it's not because they do well. That's not that they suck. It's like they suck as a business choice. Like I've always thought if I could choose between software or an agency, I'd choose software, because it's like, oh, it's not a services business. It's going to work while I sleep, and it can scale up, and I don't have to open up offices in Poland and Brazil and all these other places. But you chose that. You did software and you chose agency now. Why'd you make that choice? And what's great about agencies that I'm kind of like not giving enough credit for?
So you're looking at business as in software is more scalable, it's more desirable by public markets, EX HubSpot versus Accenture. Accenture has way worse multiples than HubSpot. Accenture is a bigger company from a revenue EBITDA standpoint. But now take a different approach. Okay, HubSpot's publicly traded companies. You guys are both HubSpot employees, I'm assuming still. Is that correct?
Kinda.
Sure. Well, whatever your guys' deal is, right? But you guys are pretty much at HubSpot. Now imagine creating a business and you don't plan on going public. You don't care for the limelight. You don't care for any of that. In business, what's a successful business? Good revenue growth and good revenue and profitability, right? All that really matters at the end of the day, whether you grow or not grow, is how profitable are you? Would you guys agree with that statement? Assuming you're doing something that's ethical and you're not selling drugs.
No, I wouldn't agree with that. I would say there's a third thing, which is like, is this enjoyable? And like, do I like my day to day? And with the more people you have, most people would say that's just a little bit more headache than.
But that's not software or consulting. Anytime you build a big company, you tend to have a large amount of people. Whether it's HubSpot or whether it's Accenture, everyone has.
Yeah, but you can probably have a much higher revenue per employee with software versus, let's say you own a massive landscaping business. You're going to have tens of thousands of people.
But what's the difference from dealing with, how many people does HubSpot have? Like 6,000? I don't know, 5,000, 6,000? There's probably a lot. I'm guessing on the number. But what's the difference of dealing with 5,000 or 6,000 people and 20,000 people? There's a point where it doesn't matter, and it's a lot of people either way. Like, it's not like you're at 50 people. You still have thousands of employees to deal with, and you need managers and layers and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but you're hiring some good or bad, you're hiring a different type of person. So for example, if you're VaynerMedia, they're based in New York, they can probably only afford to pay some of their lower level employees $70,000 or $80,000 a year. And so you just have to get a ton of people like that and have to have higher churn versus, say, a bigger company where you're able to pay a significantly higher salary because the revenue per employee is much higher. So perhaps there's a slightly different day-to-day because of that.
Not necessarily. Let's say you're VaynerMedia. He could be doing it to optimize for profit. What was if I told you his LTV was 6, 7, 8 years, right? And you have enterprise accounts. Then at that point, you can still hire high quality people and pay them an arm and a leg.
Okay.
You get what I mean, right? Like you look at Accenture, they're charging accounts so much money and their contracts are long. And I don't know what VaynerMedia's LTV is, but there's a lot of consulting companies that have LTVs of 6, 7 years for clients. And their clients are spending, a HubSpot, yes, it's more revenue per, you can say potentially in software, you can get to more revenue per employee. But I know consulting companies that only take on contracts that are like $5-6 million and upwards. So you have high margins and you can have a high revenue per employee. But either way, no matter what, as you build a big business, you're going to need more people, and it's a headache to manage. Whether you pay them 70,000 or whether you pay them 150,000, it's still more of a headache. And the notion that if you hire someone for 150,000, I'm not saying you're saying this, it doesn't necessarily mean they're a better employee, right?
No, it just means different types of headaches.
Correct, exactly. Engineers, for example, are very expensive in this economy, right? So the point I'm getting at is, a consulting company. I had the demand for it. A lot of people wanted to pay me for marketing. And there was just so much demand, it would have been silly not to do. And if I'm not trying to go public or I'm not trying to sell, money's money. Green is green. As long as you're happy doing what you're doing, take the cash.
Will you ever sell the company?
I wouldn't say I would never sell the company, but I don't care to ever sell the company because I love what I'm doing. We also have good growth too, right? Like, I don't know what we'll grow this year, 60 something percent, which isn't bad. With the market going up and down and fluctuating, 60 something percent is my guess at our size is decent.
Yeah, the part I was actually talking about was a little bit more like I think you're totally right that like if you're going to win big, you're going to end up with a bunch of employees, and like it might look like 150, it might look like 1,000, it might look like 10,000, but like in either case, you're going to have managerial work and headaches, and it's just different types. The part I was really talking about is like I've now built, let's say, a media company, content, and then it's like done educational stuff, so courses, which are like a different thing, and then there's like I built software company, and we ended up selling that one, and then it's like, and then there's services, which is like client services, like consulting or agency model. And what I love about content media is it's actually pretty fun to create, and it's cool because a lot of people consume it, so the kind of you get that like hit. But you gotta bake the cake every day, right? So like the hustle or like the Milk Road or this podcast, it's like we have to come on and create the content again. For the most part, we're not doing like super long evergreen stuff. So like with the hustle is a daily newsletter, Milk Road's a daily newsletter. It's we gotta bake that cake every day. Whereas software, it was like we built one product, and yes, we will improve it over the course of a year. Every year we're gonna improve it, but like fundamentally, we didn't have to like recreate the product, come up with a new viral story or a new great content segment that would like require like a new genius. With software, it's like you come up with one genius moment and then you sort of refine it, make it work better over time and get rid of bugs and things like that. So I preferred that part of software, which was like making a product rather than making kind of like a disposable, consumable piece of content. Or like I have an e-commerce company, and like it's a pain in the ass to have physical products that are supply chain constrained, and like we have a warehouse, we got warehouse problems with our e-commerce business. And so I'm like, man, digital is sweet compared to e-commerce, but e-commerce is quite profitable. That kicks off a bunch of profits. That's nice. So every business has these pros and cons. And I always thought agency was like, the part I always thought was a pain in the ass was like the client services. You are reinventing the next campaign and the next winning marketing, formula for them. And you have to keep clients happy all the time. And clients are sort of like never satisfied in a way that like, if software, it's like you can have nameless, faceless customers that like, yeah, some percentage of them will write into your help desk that's in the Philippines or whatever, but like you're not having to like, send account reports to your big clients and keep them happy.
Yeah, but everyone has their own problems. In software, a lot of people have churn of this issue and they can't figure it out. Or they have competitors who come into the marketplace and just undercut them on pricing for the same features because it's cheaper and cheaper to build software these days, right? So they all have their own problem. To me, I look at it as if you can find the right people. So every time I start a company, I find people to put in place that have already done it multiple times before, because your risk of failure are lower and they already know everything to do. So I don't have to deal with client relationships. I don't have to deal with customer service or anything like that. I get to do what I enjoy doing, which is go and create content, be the face, etc. And my wife enjoys what she gets to do, right? She gets to donate the money, although we don't really consider it as donations. We look at it as investing. We're investing in people, although we really don't ever collect any money back. It's more so you're investing into making the world a better place or people's lives a better place or whatever it may be.
Who were your first three clients at this agent? Because
I don't know. They were small companies.
And right now, who's an example client?
Like a Fortune 100 software company. Like that is a typical company. Think of any big, large corporation in B2B. That's a great example of one of our customers, or even B2C. Actually, think of any Fortune 500 company. That's a prime example of a customer.
And who's the CEO of your agency? Are you?
No, I'm never the CEO. I'm a terrible manager. I'm one of the worst managers ever. His name is Mike Gullickson. He was the CEO. No, he was the president of iProspect, which is an ad agency owned by Dentsu. I believe in iProspect. Maybe they had 4,000 or 5,000 people, is my guess.
And when you how early into the business did you have a hired CEO or hired leader?
Day one. I won't start a business without a CEO from day one.
And what did you pay them in the first year?
First year was my co-founder, so like 100 grand.
And that's because you basically went and drummed up 100 grand worth of business, and you're like, "Hey, Mike, I got this client to give 100 grand. Do you want to run this thing for me and help it get deployed?"
No, our business didn't start off that way. I probably put in total of 5 million bucks into the business of my own money. So it was bootstrapped, but not really bootstrapped, if that makes sense. It's kind of cheating. And it gets easier and easier as your entrepreneur, right? The more successes you have, and I'm not saying I'm successful by any means, the more capital you have to deploy into the next thing, so it reduces chances of failure. And when it's your own money, this is just my thesis, and I could be wrong on this. I have no data points. When it's your own money, you're much more careful than when if you raise like 15, 20, $30 million of venture capital, right? You really look at every single dollar. But Mike was the CEO from day one. He's a great operator, has no agency experience. Eventually, we got in a president. And then eventually from there, we got in a CEO.
And have you guys crossed 100 million in revenue yet?
Yeah, we do 9 figures.
That's crazy, man. So, well, I mean, that's just pretty wild that you're able to like parlay this blog that was already always kind of a juggernaut, but this blog into a 9 figure a year business. I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's been a good run. I'm knocking on wood, although you probably can't hear it because of Chris. But I hope it keeps going, and more so, we're just having fun. Like for me, what I enjoy doing is building a business. I know I have an expensive lifestyle. I generally don't do stuff for the money. Like I overpay like house staff, like nannies and stuff like that. When I say overpay, I drastically overpay, not by like 10, 20, 30, 40%. Like I really mean drastically overpay because I look at people, I'm like, if you're cleaning a house, how are you going to live on this? Like, I'll give someone 6 figures to do that. I know that sounds kind of crazy or stupid, but like, I'm not giving my kids money. So might as well take care of other people in this world who need it more than
But
we do.
Did you just say
you know,
you're not giving kids money?
Yeah, I'm not going to give my kids money.
Nothing? Leave nothing?
We have a trust set up. What they'll get maximum is like if they're on the street and they can't provide and they're going to be suffering, like I will help pay their bills, or put them in a normal home. Or like if my kid's like, I want to be a doctor and I want to go spend all my time in Africa helping other people out and I won't get paid for this and I need, X $5,000 a month to live or 10,000 so I can just go volunteer all my time. I'd be like, sounds good, I'll pay for that. But like I won't give them money for the sake of it. Like if they're like, I want to go travel to see Italy or I want a Honda Accord, and I'm like, go buy your own Honda Accord, go travel on your own with your own dime. Like, I don't believe in just giving people money because I think there's other people who need it more than we do.
Sean, are you going to give your kids money?
I haven't really thought about it. Like my oldest is 2, so I think I got some time to figure that out. But I lean more so I've kind of heard both arguments. Like I know somebody who some people are like, I do. There's some people that I'm definitely not in the camp of I do this for my kids. I want to leave my kids with a whole bunch. So I'm like, that may be the worst thing you could do for them. Not because it means they'll be ruined, but like
you have drug addicts.
Yeah, you take away, agency in a way, right? Like you want people to, like it's not that it's good or bad. It's actually it's just way lower on the totem pole of priorities. It's like I just don't even focus on that. It's like if I'm going to leave them something, it's going to be a certain set of character traits and skills and like mentality. That's what I'm trying to leave. Money is like, I don't know, 15th on the list of like, I don't know, we haven't even gotten to think about that yet. But I've thought a lot about what are the character traits and mentality and like mindset and skills that I think I can help build, and like that's the focus. That's the one that matters. That's the gift. If whatever else comes from beyond that, I don't know. We can figure out. It's like the footnotes.
So like we're very similar. I have a 2-year-old and a less than 1-year-old, right?
Yeah.
And I look at it as you want them to be productive units of society, right? You want them to be ambitious, hungry, caring, thoughtful, happy, like whatever it is. There's a lot of characteristics that you may want children to be, but I look at it as like they don't need money. Even like with my wife and I, we go over our expenses and we look at what we spend on travel. And we do some of this because it's easier, but like my wife and I are actually considering cutting out all private and just going commercial now. The main reason our expenses are high is due to COVID. So if it wasn't for COVID, I would just be going in a normal airport. I didn't know how COVID was going to impact with young kids, could afford it. I was just like, yeah, let's just start flying private. And we haven't gone back to commercial yet, but we're thinking about going back. Because like my wife and I look at the money is like, yeah, we spend all this money on travel and airfare and hotels. If we donated the money, people would have a better life. Do we really need it that much?
What do you do when you donate that, like, what's a good way to donate in your opinion? So there's like, ranging from not donating to one thing, to donating to a bunch of things, to like getting involved or seeing the impact, or like, I know people who, if they donate to Africa, their family will go take a trip every year so that they're more connected to the people and they actually see the impact, and they take their kids with them so that they see the impact. Like, what have you found that's a good way to give?
So we have a balance. It's my wife and I team up. This is going to sound bad, but I don't like volunteering my time. My wife loves volunteering her time. I think it's very inefficient for me to volunteer my time. I should make the money versus volunteering my time, because the money or the hours spent, if we donated the money, it would have a much bigger impact to the cause than if I actually spent my time.
I don't think
My
that
wife
sounds bad.
Yeah, and my wife loves spending the time, and like from going to soup kitchens or whatever it may be. So she picks the causes. We have a few theses. So like one thesis is we, or not really thesis, but rules. One rule is we don't like money going to organizations that have tons of high overhead. We actually want our money going to the causes. So if it doesn't go to the cause, then we tend to not pick that organization. The second thing that we look for is organizations who are self-sufficient, right? It's just like, how can this continue going even if someone wasn't managing it? So like a great program, for example, is my wife likes donating to women's education. We used to donate also to men's education as well. So you find these people in these villages, you say, hey, you can't afford to go to school, get a degree. We'll pay for you to go to college, go get a degree, come back, teach kids in your village for a few years, whether it's under a tree or anything. People can learn anywhere, right? And then, go move on with your life and do whatever you want, but at least you're giving back to your own community. And what we found is when we started giving, because we've been doing this for so long now, well, actually not that long, but when I mean long, I'm talking about like 10, 11 years where we've been donating. And it's picked up quite a bit over the last like 5, 6 years. When we started giving the money to men, a lot of the men, we saw a very low conversion rate from them actually coming back and teaching people in the village. Well, when we gave the money to women for their education, a lot of them came back and fulfilled on the promise. Because it's not like you get a signed contract, right? It's just like, hey, we're going to pay for everything, come back, help people out within your village.
Which country?
We've done this in both India and Africa. So different parts of Africa and in India. And then another program that we've done is like growing gardens, where a lot of people who have AIDS don't take their medication and aren't doing well. They're given the medication for free, but if your body doesn't have the right nutrients, it rejects it. So what we'll do is we'll do programs like growing gardens. We'll give them money. They grow food, and then not only do they eat nutritiously or well, they'll more likely to take their medication, and you're also growing enough food so that way other people in the village can also eat. So it's like, but my wife picks all the causes. She vets them. She loves it. Like she'll go, this is Wednesday. In 2 days, she'll end up going to a function, scouting out more nonprofits and organizations. I won't go. Like, I think it's a waste of time. I'm like, if I go make more money, she can donate it. It's a better ROI than if I go spend 3, 4 hours mingling when she could just do that and I can go make more so that way we can donate more.
Other than your own private businesses, what have been your best financial investments that's allowed you to donate and make a lot to give away?
Stock market has done really well. Companies like Apple, Amazon, Google, Facebook. I know Facebook's down, but they still have been a tear if you just bought the stocks early enough. Because some of these companies have grown 30, 40% a year in the public markets, compounding, right? And it really adds up. Angel investments have done really well for me. And I would say probably those are the two biggest. Stock market still has done well, although in the last 6 months I've taken a beating because I'm in 100% tech companies. Like I don't diversify. Like everyone's like, oh, you need some oil and you need this. I'm like, yeah, I'm just gonna go all tech. And people are like, oh, you're silly. Look how much you lost. But if you look at the whole time when I first got in. I've done well, and I invest in what I understand, and I'm 37, so who cares? Another 10 years, everything should rebound, assuming you pick the right companies.
What's your portfolio look like in terms of percentages?
I
Not
probably
including
don't have
private businesses.
my public portfolio. If I had to guess, I probably don't even have more than 20 stocks. Amazon, I won't be able to name them all, but Amazon, Google, Facebook, Apple, Microsoft, HubSpot, Salesforce, Adobe, Atlassian, Shopify. I'm missing some as well.